Hi everyone, I'm here through the portal and sharing my life experience that I walked in this world when I was alive, and the life review that I walked when I died. Finding myself in the interdimensional physical existence, and my death, my death experience, what happened to me after I died was really unexpected. And I remember walking my life review and just saying to myself, what the fuck? I mean, it is insane what our minds can come up with and create within ourselves, in our thoughts and our self-conversations and our perceptions, interpretations and views of things that's currently existing in this world. I mean, what is really interesting in this world is that there is no guideline for human beings in how to establish mindful relationships with what is here in this world in reality. And what I mean by mindful relationships is like considering the practical implications of relationships that you form with knowledge and information, with education, with people, with religions, with spirituality. And very easily people create their own perceptions of things that's in this world, their own individualistic interpretation of what is being portrayed, what is being shown. And that is quite dangerous in itself, in terms of how we simply think or believe that human beings are equipped to commonsensically reason information that is in this world in reality and assess its practical implications to self and one's physical living in this world. It's like that 1 + 1 equation does not work or does not even exist within the mind, within self, and within one's life. We so very easily and so very quickly take in information, interpret it, create a idea, perception or belief about it, and from there superimpose it onto ourselves, our physical and our world, and completely construct a experience of illusion through our minds. And I mean, all human beings do this. If one have a look at, for example, spirituality, religions, the education system, the profession system, I mean, all the systems that make up this entire world as a functioning unit, there is no how-to handbook for human beings in terms of what it is that all these institutions stand as in relationship to self, meaning that point, that question is never raised in terms of who am I in relation to education, in relation to knowledge and information, in relation to media, in relation to religion, in relation to spirituality. It's simply imprinting the knowledge and information, reinterpreting it, and creating this illusionary experience of perception, idea, and belief. And we never come within ourselves to that point of considering what is being offered to us within the context of how it in its totality will affect or influence who we are as an individual and also this world as a whole. And therefore, we've got human beings in this world in reality, each one with their own individual interpretation, idea, belief, perception about everything that exists in this world in reality. It's like each human being simply take knowledge and information and decide, oh, I want to look at it this way, so I will. And we do not realize the extent to which that separates us from each other and from our actual ability to live in this world and function in this world. I mean, human beings take knowledge and information so far into their minds in how they've interpreted, perceived, believed, or created ideas of it that we are so lost and not at all in touch with actual real physical reality. And there we're all going, walking in our lives, not realizing that we're not living, we're not here in this physical reality. We are complete zombies in this internal fantasy, illusion, imagination realities in our minds, in which we've accumulated our own little worlds as everything of this world that we're interpreting, perceiving, believing, and creating ideas of within our own minds. So it's like literally taking actual physical reality, imprinting everything, the likes, dislikes, and preferences of all the systems, as all the parts, into our minds, and creating a mind world of actual physical world, and simply living, existing, and experiencing ourselves within our own interpretation of reality. And that's literally how each human being is living in this world. And that's quite frightening in how human beings are simply bombarded with what is currently existing in this world in reality, and no one is given a how-to of how to utilize what is here to practically function within themselves, within their lives, and within this physical practical world, in not creating all these various mind realities within themselves. And I mean, that's why this physical reality, this physical world is just all literally self-destructing, because no one is in fact doing anything in this physical, actual, real world. We're all consumed within our own internal mind realities. And my life experience is an example of this, where I took religion and I reinterpreted it within my own mind and had a pretty messed up life. So just to give you a extensive example of how much one's mind can fuck with you if you do not question who you are in relation to what is here in this world in reality, but simply accept and allow it inside you and have your mind reason a alternate reality within yourself, which is far from actual real physical reality. So within my life experience, I was introduced to Christianity, and where one had God and hell and Jesus and Christ and Holy Ghost and the entire religious Christianity package. And from a very young age we were introduced to your conduct in terms of being a Christian, and how Jesus died for your sins and therefore are forgiven to be able to go to heaven. But while you're in this life, you obviously have to walk according to the rules and regulations of God in the Bible to make sure that you maintain your position in heaven. And within and during that time, what really stuck with me is this point of sin. And I, as a kid, really referenced my behavior in relation to making sure that I live according to God's word so that I can go to heaven, because I really don't want to burn in hell for eternity. And therefore I made sure that I do not sin. And I mean, I really studied the 10 Commandments and did the Bible and the praying and the church going, but I have found within my interactions throughout my life weaknesses, like really having to lie to get out of a situation because the physical consequences of me telling the truth, I already knew what would happen, and I didn't particularly in that moment wanted to have me experience consequence. So I would suddenly unexpectedly be overwhelmed and lie, and I would, to protect myself within my environment amongst my friends, I would create gossip stories towards other people, that the bullies in the school that would threaten me, and make sure that they pay, in rumors that would be spread around the school. And I saw that as sin. And with me having thoughts and experiences towards the girls, and those were primary points in my childhood that happened quite often. And I'd go in this massive experience of fear of me having these thoughts and experiences towards the females, and me lying so often, and me protecting myself from the bullies in the school through creating rumors and going to the teachers behind their backs. And initially I simply considered that Jesus will be okay with this because he'll understand in that from within the school context I need to survive. From the lying context, I was protecting myself from consequence that I knew was coming, and the lie was not going to hurt anyone. And then from the females to its humanness, but even those reasonings that I had within myself, this guilt within me grew and grew and grew. So I knew I had to find a way to stop myself from sinning. And I pondered this for quite some time. And then one day later in my life, and I mean I was really struggling with this point of sinning and the heaven and hell and God and Jesus and praying and things like that. I mean, it was like I was completely consumed by this thing and this experience of God is watching my every single move and He knows the truth. I mean, I can reason with myself on these things, but He knows. And every little thing that I do wrong, that I experience to be sin, would build this overwhelming guilt and fear. And it was just like I could feel that I'm moving farther and farther away from heaven, and I'm going to go to hell if I continue this. And this made me a very agitated, jumpy, anxious young man. And I eventually started isolating myself more and more from people, from the world, and just moved closer to closer in educating myself on the Bible, and eventually only connecting myself to God. And I believe that if I move myself in my relationships closer to just God, that all of these sinning opportunities that presented themselves in this world, in this reality, would cease more and more, and I could live more according to God's will. But what was happening within me was more and more. So the more I extracted myself from the external world, the more my internal world was sinning. And like I was fantasizing a lot. I had all these imaginations about what I'd like to do, what I want to do, who I want to become, what I would prefer doing. And stuff like your normal teenage things would come up, trying out smoking for the first time, drinking, going out being naughty, like sneaking out of the house. And this is what my friends were talking about and what they were doing. And I mean, it's kind of exhilarating breaking the rules, but with parents that was kind of okay, and with teachers as well, but not God. And these experiences and feelings of sexuality became more and more as I was getting to my teenage years. And I just became more anxious, nervous, fidgety, and I was really stuck in this massive conundrum, because it felt like everything that I was doing was sinning. And I was trying to move closer and closer to God by just focusing my entire life on God. I mean, I was even preparing myself to study in becoming a pastor, and nothing was bringing any solution to alleviating my tendency towards sinning. And I later on wondered if this was my fate, like God didn't choose me to go to heaven, that this is just why I'm sinning so extensively in my thoughts, in my conduct, in my experiences. And I mean, by that time, by my early 20s, I had now walked this entire life to that point just in absolute fear. And it felt like I tried everything in terms of moving myself closer to God so that I can stop sinning so much, and extracted myself more and more from the world to not be exposed to sin. Because later on I just realized, but I mean, this whole world is sin. That's why there's Christians in this world and reality to save the sinners, to save the world, to be Jesus' disciples. But then I realized, but how can I be Jesus' disciple if I'm sinning so much? And then in my early 20s, I saw a movie, and in this film, this guy was praying, and while he was praying, he was mutilating his physical body as his offering to God. And that to me was like absolute commitment to being equal to and merging oneself with God, Jesus, religion to such an extent where one would offer oneself in one's total mental and physical condition in like an actual sacrifice. And I looked at, for me, that moment where I saw he was praying and physically mutilating himself, that could be how I could help myself with stopping sinning. Meaning, God wasn't helping me at that stage, Jesus wasn't helping me. I mean, they couldn't because I was sinning. So I had to help myself in stopping sinning. And so, every time, every day that I'd find myself that I'd sinned in some way or another, I would, in the evenings, lock myself into a room and I would physically abuse myself. I would bash myself into walls. I would hit my head on the wall. I would cut myself. I would roll on the streets. I would jump off high places. I would physically find a way to really harm myself. I mean, I had broken bones. I had broken my hands. I had broken my feet. I had almost broken every bone in my body throughout the years, wherein every time I had sinned, I would punish myself. And that would stop me from accepting and allowing myself to sin within myself and my world. And I mean, this continued throughout my life from my early 20s to my 40s, throughout the years. And I mean, even during that time, I had completely given up on further studying to become a missionary of God, because I had to ensure that I first stopped sinning, because how can I go to heaven if I continue sinning? And therefore, I mean, I found various ways in terms of harming, abusing myself and hurting myself physically, in that I considered if I punish myself that I'll stop. I mean, if you do something and you want to stop doing something, punish yourself and do it extensively so that you won't do it again. But the one thing that I couldn't stop with regards to sinning was inside my own head. And these thoughts and imaginations and fantasies and experiences inside myself just never wanted to go away. No matter how much I prayed, no matter how much I dedicated myself to reading the Bible, to praying to God, to speaking to God, to going to church, to communicating with the church people, to confessing, it's like throughout the years I've tried everything, but my mind did not want to become quiet. And then I mean, I went insane throughout my life with my physical punishment. Every evening I would assess my daily sins, and from that calibrate the extent of self-punishment that I have to give myself to make sure that I do not allow myself to sin so much throughout the day. I mean, it got less in physical reality, but in myself it never ceased. And then later on throughout my life, this pain, abuse became a physical addiction. Like, I wanted to experience pain. It became satisfying in a way, like that moment of giving yourself that experience of pain. It's like you could almost taste it in a way, physically. And so I eventually then became possessed with finding ways to experience various types and forms of pain. Obviously, I realized throughout the years it was stupid to try and break my bones, because the healing process took very long. And within that time I couldn't really hurt myself much, but burn or cut, hit, slap, and that wasn't enough for me to experience that physical satisfaction of pain. And so throughout my life I experimented with various types and forms of pain. And during that time I had been living with my parents, and I would simply make up various excuses in terms of what physically happened to me. And I mean, I was physically active as well, so I'd make up stories in terms of what I did, what happened. And because it was spread out through so many years, they never really put 1 + 1 together, and I also didn't see them much. So only during the actual bone breaking did they see me, and I would always just make up some story about what happened, and they never knew what I was really going through within myself, where it initially started with me punishing myself for sin, and now it became a physical addiction where I wanted to hurt myself, trying to find the next experience of pain. Really, I mean, it was insane what the body can handle throughout the years. Until my mind just fragmented to such an extent, because I was like in these true contradictory experiences of initially me punishing myself for sin to eventually it becoming me just really wanting to hurt myself physically, and see how far I could take pain. And just one night everything fell apart within me. It's like my mind just couldn't handle what I was existing as within myself and my world. And I ran outside my apartment, and I ran onto a highway, and I walked myself into a car on full speed, and I died slowly, unfortunately. My head hit the pavement, and I could feel my head bleeding, and it's quite interesting, bleeding to death. It feels like blood. You could feel the blood like flowing out of your whole body. It's actually quite an interesting death. It's like literally when you're like pouring water out of a tube, and you're actually experiencing that water pouring out of the tube, and that very detail is what you experience physically as the water would pour out, and the muscle tissue would start contracting and manifesting into this real extensive pain. And then it was this all-encompassing physical pain that I had never experienced, and everything went black, and then I died. So that was quite a life experience that I've walked, and the point that I'd like to bring forth is that people in this world, in this reality, are not mentally prepared for much of what is currently existing in this world, in this reality. I mean, if you simply look at the religion, what is sin and what is not sin is not delineated in the specificity of what it really in fact means, and therefore one's mind can so very easily make up ideas, perceptions and beliefs about what religion actually in fact mean in this physical, practical, contextual world and reality. I mean, within religion itself, there's no guideline about how to, within yourself, as you walk through your teenage years, walk through what's really going on in your mind. And I mean, kids don't speak about it, but it exists in all children's mind as you come of age and you're exposed to sexuality. And that's the one point that really fucked up my entire life in relation to religion and God, because all these fantasies came up and I just couldn't stop them. All these sexual experiences in almost all its forms just kept popping up in my head over and over and over again. Practically physically surviving in this world sometimes requires certain actions, which according to religion is interpreted as sin, but there's no other way to survive in this world. And simply within the basis of seeing, realizing and understanding how just religion is not practically applicable to how the mind works, to how this physical reality and humanity today works. And one can have a look at everything as all the parts that this world system consists of and exists as currently, especially within the context of education, religion, spirituality, movements and things like that. None of them is practically physically tangible to living in this world within the condition of human beings' minds. Nothing in this world, in this reality, is sorting out the mind of a human. I mean, if I understood then what I do now, in terms of, firstly, I didn't have to judge what was happening within me. I just had to understand it and direct it and assist and support myself within it. And what religion obviously in fact is. And I'm sure some of the other guys doing and walking interview series here will walk the whole religious part of this world and this reality. So I won't go into detail about that now. But everything one can relate to and contextualize into how nothing of it shows you how to handle, deal with, or direct your mind. I didn't know or understand what was really happening within me. And even children in today's world, in the education system, there's no education with kids in how to direct, handle, deal with your mind and what's going on. It's like kids are being imprinted with bullshit knowledge and information so that they can get into this world to survive and make money, but there's no consideration or regard given for the actual inner workings of what's happening in that child's mind. There's no education for kids in how thoughts work, how your feelings and emotions work, what are the sexual fantasies that will come up, what will be your experiences when you start growing up, what's really happening in your physical body. None of that exists. No wonder human beings are becoming more and more insane in this world. How many children drop out of school because they simply cannot handle the dynamics of what is happening within themselves, within their world, within their relationships, with the system. I mean, children are quite intuitive within being able to see the reality of what is here. And therefore, I'm really not surprised in terms of why many of them are just going, fuck this. Because they can experience and see that there's no consideration and regard given for them in what's really going on within them and how to really handle this world and how our minds have become in relation to this world. And I really wish that that when I was a kid, I knew and could understand what was happening in my mind, and not simply related to religion, to sin, and fuck up my entire life based on a religion that in the first place is not real, based on simply me not understanding who I am as my mind. So I'm sure that there are many people listening to this interview that can relate to what I'm saying, especially within the context of we're not educated in terms of what's going on in our minds, and that can really fuck up one's entire life extensively. And therefore, I suggest one assist and support oneself to get to know one's mind and how it works. And I mean, even if there does exist knowledge and information about the mind, you only learn that later in life. When you're like in your 20s, 30s, your life is already over. And plus you've got to pay for it. And how many people in this world can pay for an education in terms of understanding how they really work? By the time you find out how you really work, you've already walked half your life. Most of it's already fucked and lost, and you can't really do anything with your life but survive and make money. I mean, one has to consider that is not even just deliberate in how the whole education system is set up in this world in reality. So I suggest you are here, get to know how it is that your mind works, and you'll be fascinated with the extent to which this mind can fuck with you. I am a living example of that, and many beings coming through the portal come share how it is that it was just their mind that fucked with them and what they accepted and allowed. So walk this process that is here served to you on a golden platter, and man, if I were you, I'd not hesitate and go for it. And you have the Desteni platform as the golden platter, as the tools that's here for you to assist and support yourself to get to know your mind with as yourself. The writing, the self-forgiveness, self-corrective application. They've even got their courses that is available here. Even if you don't have money, you can walk it. And thus, there is no excuse for you to fuck up your life when the answer is here. You just need to take it, live it, be it, do it, and get it done. So don't let your mind, simply just because you don't understand it, fuck with you when all you have to do is understand it. direct yourself within it and take charge of your life, and not have it be controlled by ideas, perceptions, beliefs and interpretations that through which you have constructed an internal separate mind reality, instead of living in this actual real physical world and actually being a normal human being. God knows if any of those even more exists in this world, based on how we have created so many messed up internal realities. But we are the only ones that can help ourselves, obviously. I mean, this world is not presenting any other solution, and it's obviously not here in the best interest of a human being. Otherwise the focus would have been on the human being, and it is not. So we literally only have ourselves and us standing together in helping ourselves to help us all. Thank you very much. No guideline for human beings in how to establish mindful relationships with what is here in this world in reality. And what I mean by mindful relationships is like considering the practical implications of relationships that you form with knowledge and information, with education, with people, with religions, with spirituality. And very easily people create their own perceptions of things that's in this world, their own individualistic interpretation of what is being portrayed, what is being shown, that create a idea, perception or belief about it, and from there superimpose it onto ourselves, our physical and our world, and completely construct a experience of illusion through our minds. And I mean, all human beings do this. If one have a look at, for example, spirituality, religions, the education system, the profession system, I mean, all the systems that make up this entire world as a functioning unit, there is no how-to handbook for you. Hi everyone, I'm here through the portal and sharing my life experience that I walked in this world when I was alive, and the life review that I walked when I died. Finding myself in the interdimensional physical existence, and my death, and that is quite dangerous in itself, in terms of how we simply think or believe that human beings are equipped to commonsensically reason information that is in this world in reality and assess its practical implications to self and one's physical living in this world. It's like that 1+1 equation does not work or does not even exist within the mind, within self, and within one's life. We so very easily and so very quickly take in information, interpret my death experience, what happened to me after I died was really unexpected. And I remember walking my life review and just saying to myself, what the fuck? I mean, it is insane what our minds can come up with and create within ourselves in our thoughts and our self-conversations and our perceptions, interpretations and views of things that's currently existing in this world. I mean, what is really interesting in this world is that there is